everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about An Overdue Match by SARAH MONZON. It's a contemporary Christian romance in the Christian fiction genre, and I'm actually recording this episode on the release day, which is pretty fun because it's a brand new book. So this one's also the start of a brand new series. It's book one in the Checking Out Love series. I was fortunate enough to be able to read an advanced reader copy, so many thanks to the publisher for sending me an ebook file. And I'll add my little disclaimer that all opinions that I express in this video and audio recording for the podcast are completely my own. Now, why did I want to read this book? Well, it's got bookish characters and it's set in a library, so I'm automatically intrigued by the bookish connection with it, and the cover is just adorable. And I've read many of Sarah's books before, including some of the books in her Sewing in SoCal series, which is also rom-coms, and I have some recommendations for some of Sarah's books at my blog on my website at narelleatkins.com. So let's talk about the book. An Overdue Match by SARAH MONZON is set in a small town in Tennessee, and the romance tropes in this story are really fun. So we have a leading lady who's our matchmaker, and she's not very good at matchmaking, which is what makes this story, I think, so fun. We also have opposites attracts. Our hero and heroine are very different people, and it very much is an opposites attracts situation with the way that their friendship and romance plays out. We also have rom-com story elements, which is so much fun. I do enjoy romantic comedies, especially when I laugh out loud, and they actually do bring a smile to my face. And we have a twist on the best friend's brother. In this situation, we have the best friend's cousin. And the cousin and the hero are actually close like siblings, so I figured that counts as well. So let's talk about the first line, and it's quite an intriguing one. And this is what it is. So, libraries aren't famous for their penal codes, but some library offences deserve due punishment. And I'm like, boy, this sounds very serious and reminds me of when I was a kid going to the library and we'd have these stern librarians walking around. And I used to think, oh, if I talk too loudly or if I get caught eating a lolly, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. So the story opens with this first line and we meet Evangeline Kelly. Now, I'm going to get sidetracked by her name because this sidetracked me at the beginning of the story. Because there is an Evangeline Kelly who is a Christian, and I think she writes sweet, clean, wholesome romances as well. So I've read some of her books, and it's a pen name. So the author's name isn't actually Evangeline Kelly. But initially, I got completely distracted by that. But I think that's a Narelle issue and probably something that nobody else would actually notice. And I also kept getting her confused with Evangeline Lilly, who was a TV actor. I think she's Canadian, who was in a TV series Lost many years ago. So I got past my name confusion very quickly at the beginning. It didn't detract me from enjoying the story, but I had to mention that because it was part of my reading experience with this one. So Evangeline is in her late 20s. I think she's 27. She's new to the small town where she is in Tennessee, and she's in her dream job, which is to be a librarian. And she is a massive book nerd. She adores books, lives and breathes books. She really understands the special relationship that readers have with books and stories that they read. And so I just love that. It's just really cool to actually meet a character who gets you in terms of your love for books. And she's got an autoimmune condition, alopecia, and she's incredibly self-conscious and embarrassed by this medical condition that's altered her appearance because she's lost her hair. And she wears a wig in the story, and particularly at the start of the story, she's very keen for no one to know that she's wearing a wig or that there's anything that's not physically perfect about her, and she's quite insecure about that as well. And what makes it worse is that when she started getting the alopecia symptoms, her ex-fiance, being a shallow, horrible, awful person, decided to dump her and blamed it on her physical imperfections, which is just awful. So you start off the story just wanting to give her a big hug because she's had such a rough time and she's dealing with some pretty big stuff. And it was just so insightful to see her journey with the alopecia in the story. So, because of what her ex-fiance's done, she's really got to a point where she believes that she's not lovable and that there's no one in the world who could look at her and see her as an attractive woman and see her as beautiful and someone who they'd want to be in a relationship with. So, to channel her romance into other areas, she's decided that she's going to become the resident matchmaker at the library. And she hatches this absolutely insane and crazy scheme to match up library patrons according to their reading preferences. Now, as you can imagine, this isn't going to work well for her. And it's a rom-com, so you obviously there's going to be a lot of humor related to all this as well. But that's her starting point, is that she would love to be loved, but she just feels like that just can't happen for her. And then we meet Ty, and he's our hero in the story. And he's back in his hometown. He's in his late 20s, and he's a tattoo artist who owns the local tattoo parlor. And the thing that he really struggles with in the story is his bad boy reputation that is not deserved. Things happened when he was younger, so he wasn't angelic by any means. But now that he's older and more mature, people still have stereotypes because of his job. They make assumptions that aren't true, and he has to overcome a lot of that as well in terms of this undeserved bad boy reputation that he's gained. So the meet cute happens very early in the book, and it's just adorable. It is so cute. Now, of course, they're in the library, and Evangeline's at work, and she's very meticulous about her job. She's very particular about the condition of books. And when books get returned, she pays very close attention to make sure that everything's in order. And then we have Ty's cousin Haley, who is effectively, she would be Evangeline's best friend. Evangeline doesn't have a lot of friends. A lot of this relates to her being quite close to people because she's so self-conscious about her appearance and that. And so Haley's really sweet, but she's also a bit mischievous. And she and Ty have a history of daring each other to do silly things. And Haley decides to set up Ty and Evangeline with this little dare. And that becomes a meet cute. And it is really, really funny because Ty, without realizing it, completely ruffles all of Evangeline's feathers. And she doesn't quite know what to make of him. And what happens messes up her ideas of how people should behave in the library. And it's just really cute. So I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to give away any spoilers. But as I was saying, as the story progresses, Evangeline and Ty end up spending time together, and I'm not going to explain why because I don't want to give away spoilers. But we really see Evangeline's self-esteem issues and how that's impacted her relationship with God and what she thinks of God and whether she believes that God could love her, etc. as well. So I really appreciated seeing her journey. And she doesn't at the start of the story believe that she's enough. She really thinks that this autoimmune disease has ruined her life, that she doesn't have beautiful, lustrous hair like all these other people that she admires. And she just really believes that no one would want her because of this issue that she has with not having natural hair. And Ty basically spends a lot of time in the story overcoming the stereotypes and overcoming his undeserved reputation from the past as well. And in many ways, they can relate to each other because of those issues. And I loved how the alopecia was sensitively handled in the story. And it was just really eye-opening as a reader to actually journey with Angeline and to see exactly what she was thinking and feeling and experiencing as she does life and just goes about doing things that we just don't think twice about, but for her are a really big deal. And I found that to be quite intriguing and interesting. And I really appreciated learning more and understanding what it's like to live with alopecia and to be wearing wigs and all that kind of thing. And I really liked Ty. He was just so patient with her. He was understanding of her needs, and he picked up on a lot of things that Evangeline didn't realize. He's quite observant, and he was just really sensitive and supportive. And he knew when to keep his mouth shut and to step back and to let her work through issues and work through things that she needed to work through, knowing that at some point in time in the future that she would open up to him, or he would pray that she would open up to him. And there were some really fun moments in this story, being a rom-com, and the library return box. So when you get to the library return box scene, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But it was, in my opinion, laugh out loud hilarious, and I can still see it in my mind. And it was just really fun. So there were lots of fun scenes like that in the book. And then, of course, we have a cat, and we have a very spoilt cat called Kitty Purry, who is referred to by Evangeline as Her Highness, and I can totally relate to this. And Kitty Purry didn't appreciate getting fed from an automatic cat feeder, and my cat has an automatic cat feeder. Otherwise, she would be waking us up at 4 a.m. to eat breakfast. So, the automatic cat feeder saves us from having a very miserable night's sleep, and I very much appreciate that. And I just thought Kitty Purry was adorable in the story. So, my favorite book quote from the story is, she said it was like God had spoken to her through that butterfly. He was telling her he saw her, that she was never alone, and that she was deeply loved. And that was really a strong theme in the story, that God loved her despite what she thought about her appearance, or what she thought about who she was, or what had happened in the past, that his love was solid and steadfast and there. And I really appreciated the faith elements in the story that sort of centered around that theme. And I would call this one a story that has a relevant faith element. And what I mean by that is that the faith threads flowed naturally from the story, out of the characters and what was actually happening on the page. Now, in terms of how this book impacted me, I loved it. It was such a great story. And as I said, I laughed out loud at times. And then there were other times when I felt quite reflective, when I was thinking about the way that Ty was being treated by people, as well as Anne Evangeline, and really processing their situations and what's going on. And I really like books that have that depth that makes me think, and will make me think twice. If I was to meet somebody with alopecia, I think I would have a lot more understanding and empathy having read this book, which is a good thing. Now, I also have a needle phobia. So I was sitting there thinking, I really hope we don't have any long scenes with a whole lot of tattooing going on, because that is going to make me want to put the book aside for a while. So I'm very happy to report that that's not the case, that wasn't a major aspect of the story at all. And there weren't any scenes where I had to put my Kindle aside because the needle aspect was too much, which is good news. So, in summary, I would definitely recommend this book to romance readers who love bookish characters and library settings. There's just something about a small town library. I live in a city in Australia, and our libraries, you order your books online, you turn up, collect it from the shelf, walk over to the machine, check it out, walk out the door, and often you never talk to anybody while you're at the library. It's very, very different to this beautiful small town library that Sarah's set up in this book. So I just loved going to a library like I remember from when I was younger. So it had a lot of library nostalgia for me. I love the rom-com elements in the story, and how the matchmaking aspect of the story had quite a few twists that were fun and really tied into the romance. I love the opposites attract, and how Evangeline initially had ideas that maybe Ty was dangerous, etc., because her granny had put those types of ideas into her head. And it was really good to see that she didn't dwell on that, and that she saw who Ty really was and the person he was underneath his skin. I loved how the story had depth, and how it really dealt sensitively with a significant health issue that was addressed with such sensitivity and kindness. And we really got to see how it impacted Evangeline in the story in a way that was just lovely and delightful to read. And it has a relevant faith element. And we see that in Evangeline's journey in particular. And that's a winner for me. Thanks for joining me today. Does An Overdue Match by Sarah Monzon seem like a book that you'd like to read? Have you read it? I know it's just released, but some of you may have read an advanced reader copy or pre-ordered the book, which means it would have arrived in your possession on or before the release date. So I'd love to hear what you think, and you can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via the link in the show notes. If you're on YouTube, you can like the episode and leave a comment. And a big thank you to my friends on YouTube who've stopped by and left comments on my episodes. It's so fun to read, and I'm glad to hear what you think about the show. So thank you so much for leaving comments, and I will do my best to make sure that I reply to all of them as well in a timely manner. So thank you. And you can also email me via my contact form at my website, which is at narelleatkins.com. You don't forget to subscribe if you're enjoying the show at your favorite podcasting app, or subscribe at YouTube so you won't miss an episode if you're watching at YouTube. Please don't forget that you can share the episode link if a friend. If you have a friend that loves reading contemporary Christian romance and rom-com and you think would enjoy hearing about Sarah's book. Thanks again for tuning in, and see you next time.